Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note any website or email that I mention will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business licensing assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center at City Hall or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business licenses can be applied for or renewed online at chicago.gov/business licensing. The BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program now has a new portal. If you are already part of the program, your account will automatically reflect the credit for joining this webinar within 24 hours. If you want to learn more about the program, please visit chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. I will post the mentioned information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection or the City of Chicago. Today's webinar will be how professionals can help maximize your business and help get you to the next level. It'll be facilitated by Jim Jaffe, SCORE mentor of North Cook and Lake Counties. Jim?
Good morning, everybody. Nice to have you with us. Can't see you all, but I'm sure we'll be hearing from you. We have 4 expert panelists today. Myself, Anna for insurance, Lema, and Lynette covering accounting. Let's see. Want to make sure I've got everything right, and legal. The purpose of today's meeting is to let you hear from us experts what might be of value to you. But first, we're going to start out with a brief introduction of who we are, and then we'll jump into the questions. My background is extensively working with small businesses internationally and in the U.S., helping them figure out how to do branding and financial planning. And I do this for SCORE as a volunteer. I also do it professionally for others, and in addition have a small business having to do with procurement and purchasing. Anna, let's jump to you, please.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. My company is the Viti Companies. We're a 3rd-generation family-owned business, and we help businesses with their insurance needs. So if you need general liability, cyber, workman's comp, professional, any type of business insurance, we can help you.
Thank you. Lema?
Thanks, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Geraldine, thank you again for hosting this. And Jim, our esteemed moderator. My name's Lema Khorshid. I'm a practicing corporate transactional and intellectual property attorney. I've been practicing for 20 years. I'm thrilled to be here and participate in another BACP seminar. So thanks for having me.
Okay. Lynette?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Lynette DeRose. I own Supporting Strategies Chicago Southland. We provide professional bookkeeping and accounting services to our business clients. So thanks for having me today. I look forward to participating in this panel.
So we were anxiously awaiting any questions that any of you in the audience might have, but we're going to start off with a couple to see how we can get this rolling. The first one, and any of our panelists can jump in, is why should you use the services, legal, insurance, or accounting, or financial planning? Why should you do that? What's the benefit to you? Anybody want to answer?
I mean, I can start off.
Sure.
Business insurance. When you launch a business, you should really have insurance. It depends on what you're doing. So if you're selling a product, selling food, working with food, let's say, you really need product liability insurance.
Okay. Okay, Lima or Lynette, any thoughts about that?
So thanks, Jim. I'm a big believer in creating a foundation and a team. And I think that if you're starting out a business, you really need to think about how do you create a really solid foundation and build a team of professionals that can really carry you forward. So I think it's really important to think about issues like accounting, like legal, like insurance, because that's essentially the team players that support a solid foundation. So I think having those conversations and getting those referrals from the get-go helps you really think about the endeavor more globally and more solidly. So you know, those early conversations with service professionals are definitely key to success in business.
How about you,
I-
Lynette?
Yeah, I have found that accounting is one of the things that business owners don't seek help with right away. The day-to-day accounting, they'll fire up the QuickBooks and try to do it themselves for a while. And that can work, but working with a professional, we can teach you best practices. We can put systems in place that protect you from perhaps having your employees steal from you, or, you know, maybe you have a loan at a bank to get your business started. The loan's going to want to see financial statements, or I'm sorry, the bank's going to want to see financial statements. So although business owners do tend to start out without accounting help, eventually they definitely need it. And it's always good to start off with the best people in place to get your business going.
One of the things that I do very frequently, as I mentioned, I do a lot of mentoring for SCORE people. One of the things that is really key to their success is doing financial projections, which tends to be an area that folks do not focus on. And while it's great, like Lynette's saying, if you have financial information because you're a business, lots of entrepreneurs who are starting up don't have anything like that. And as a result, they have very misguided ideas about what's relevant. Many people that I work with, for example, figure, oh, I've got the world's slickest product. I'll go to find a venture capitalist and the money will come out. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that at all. You've got to have detailed financials. Banks will not lend you money as a rule unless you have collateral. Most of the time, small businesses cannot attract folks who will be investors. They want to have something that's usually larger and scalable and can show profits, most of which is very difficult. So there's lots of things to do in terms of the financial area that can be critical to your success. Do we have any questions from the audience at this point yet? Okay,
We do have one.
please.
I have a food business that is infused with liquor. I do need insurance. My problem is that the city has not defined that I need a liquor license. So I guess the question is, what kind of insurance do they need?
For a liquor distribution business, is this, or a manufacturer, or what?
There's no specifics except what was read. So
Yeah.
just that they need manufacturing. They just
They're manufacturing, well, they really need product liability. You can get a very inexpensive liquor liability policy, which is not very, very expensive. So, like I
Okay.
said,
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And then another question, I'm assuming this is for Lema. I'd like pointers on creating a series LLC.
What's the question? I want what?
Pointers on creating a series LLC. So an existing corporation, can an existing corporation be converted to an LLC and added to a series LLC?
Well, an existing corporation can be converted to an LLC, and then you'd have to file that LLC to be a series LLC. So you'd have to go through the conversion process, and you know, I would speak to your accountant and lawyer about that, and then you would create a regular LLC and convert it to a series, or you might be able to just convert it to a series. So it depends on what you're doing, but anytime you do a conversion, it's a taxable event, as Lynette can tell you. So it's a really good idea to talk to an accountant first to see what assets the corporation has before you do the conversion. And then but you can do the conversion, and it just takes proper planning, like having a conversation with your lawyer and accountant. And I would definitely start with an accountant on that issue first. And Lynette, if you want to talk about that, or you have any sort of insight, but you can't just simply convert to convert. And it depends. If you're a startup or you're a more established business, it gets more complicated. If you're established, if you're a startup and you haven't done anything with your business, it might just be prudent to just start over and do a series. So it all depends. And then it says explain the value of a series LLC. I think a series is the value of it is you can essentially create various cells under one LLC, which are part of the series, and you could do different businesses. And as long as you kept the books and records separately, instead of having, like, for example, filing for 4 LLCs, you can file for 1 LLC, and then essentially each cell or part of the series is a separate and distinct business. So you only do 1 annual report instead of doing, like in my example, 4 annual reports. You have 1 operating agreement instead of 4 operating agreements. The series LLC really came to play when real estate developers or people owning real estate wanted to hold all of the real estate in 1 LLC instead of having multiple LLCs. So the series kind of arose out of that. It was like, circa 2005. And so now you could put a parcel of real estate in each one of the series, and then the liability for that, business venture or that real estate venture would be, sort of like siloed into each one of the series. So depending on what you're doing, what business you're doing, depending on what your goals and objectives are, it might be a good solution for you. But again, that's an accounting and a legal question, and it's a case-by-case basis.
Mhm. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. There's next question is on taxes. As a new small business, is there a way to know how much taxes I should apply to my products when customers are making a purchase?
Yes. Well, sales tax is determined by the city, so depending on the city and state will tell you how much sales tax to apply to that product.
Okay. Let's see. I think one thing that might be very helpful is that if each of our panelists, and including me, might focus on the question of issues that you run across that are warning signs that you would like to alert a business owner to. Okay, I'll start with that. The biggest issue that I run across, and I touched on this a couple of minutes ago, is money. Where is it? Who has it? What are the circumstances under which you can get it? And part of the problem is a misunderstanding of how money works. And as I mentioned before, banks are reluctant to lend money unless you have collateral. So if you can put your house up, well, that's fine, but it might be tough. Investors, one of the challenges with investors, should you be fortunate enough to have an idea that you can grow, one of the challenges is what's called their return on investment. And just as a rule of thumb, anybody that gives you money as an investment is looking for something like 10 times their money back within 5 years. So what that means is, if you're a small business, and in fact, what happens is that you convince somebody to invest $100,000 in your business, they are going to not do that unless they can see their way clear to getting $1 million back 5 years from now. And how do they do that? There has to be financial projections showing where is the business going to be in 5 years. And then what happens is there is what's called a multiple of sales as a rough rule of thumb about business valuation. So to oversimplify this process, if in fact you have a business that does $2 million worth of sales in 5 years, and You therefore have a one-time valuation, meaning somehow this is valued at $2 million. You might sell the business for $2 million, but today, because of how this all works, the investor who's going to want $1 million is going to want 50% of your equity now. And everybody I talk to says, oh, well, I always want to control my business. That may not be realistic. And this is where folks like me can try to help you think through what's happening. Yeah. Some of the rest of you might want to comment on your perspective on that as well.
Well, I'll tell you, for business insurance, a lot of people don't think they need it when they launch. I mean, I've had people come to me and they've been in business for 20 years and still don't have insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I will let you know that one of my clients has a gas station, and somebody 2 days ago sent a lawsuit to them because someone, supposedly a customer, fell in the parking lot. They had no knowledge of it. Nobody came to them. So thank heaven that client has general liability, which means the insurance company will provide an attorney for them to fight it, or, like I said, help them settle it. A lot of people, like I said, the only law is to have workman's comp. Another thing people don't really realize is if you have 1099s, those should be looked upon as W-2. And what I mean by that is if the 1099 doesn't have their own insurance, own workman's comp, then you who hired them need to have that, or you'll be paying for it. Like I said, a lot of people, I feel that when you are starting your business, you should really talk to an insurance agent, probably 30 to 40 days before you start.
Okay. Any
I
Alice, why don't
always
you-
tell people that when you're starting your business, you want to lay a foundation that prepares you for every worst case scenario. Like, it sounds negative, but if you have the right legal documents in place, if you have the right insurance policies in place, you're going to be protected especially if you're starting your business with another person and you guys are best friends and everything's going to be great and nothing bad's ever going to happen. And then a few years down the road, that's no longer the case. And if you don't have those legal documents from the beginning, you can really find yourself in a bad place down the road. So I definitely think the strong foundation is legal, and insurance is a must starting out.
There's that wonderful old quote from Ronald Reagan about trust but verify. And that's absolutely key in any of these things, because I too, as I'm sure you do, see, the favored brother-in-law who's going to just give me the $100,000 because he loves me, and then it all blows up and nobody
Right.
quite knows what to do about it.
Right.
Right.
And also too, it does not cost to get a quote. And also, I think people need to understand that you can get options and you don't have to purchase them right away. They can always be added later. But if you're starting a business or have a business and don't have insurance, I would highly recommend you find someone to get a quote from.
Lema, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so, I'll echo Lynette's sentiments, because I feel very strongly in that. I think that a lot of people get really excited about the idea and starting and getting started, so that they don't think through, for example, budgeting and financials. The number one way that most small businesses fail is they're not liquid, right? They don't think to write a business plan and think out the issues. They don't consult with an attorney or a lawyer. They don't get business insurance because they're so keen on getting it off the ground and, the high of the idea. And I think, if I would give anyone, a tip, is always be thinking about planning and foundation. If you think foundationally, and you build a solid foundation, then every decision you make lays on that solid foundation. If you have a shaky foundation, you're not doing things properly, everything lays on a really shaky foundation. And what you don't want to do is redo something, right? So for the person that asked about the conversion from the corporation to the LLC, I don't know where you are in your business, but if you had the conversation with your accountant and your lawyer to begin with about what might be the proper structure, then that would have been cut. You know, that decision would have been a good decision in lieu of like just starting doing it and then reconverting, right? I'm just making that up. Maybe you did.
Mhm.
So I'm a really big fan of that. And then in terms of, you know, just thinking about business insurance and liability, I think that, you know, the high of the idea, or people are like, well, I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to spend the money on a policy. I don't want to spend the money on a consultant. You know, I can easily pull documents off the internet, or like I can do like, you know, TurboTax and do my own taxes. And I'll tell you, I'm a lawyer with a finance degree and I have an accountant, right? So the reason being is like, let the baker bake the bread. There are very, very seasoned professionals who can give you really great advice and insight, and that will save you so much money, so much time, so much good advice, so that when you do have a situation where you do get hit by a lawsuit, you're properly insured, or, you know, your accountant, you know, budgeted and planned and did cash flow projections with you. And, you know, all of this proper foundational items, I think, make you more credible to raise money. Right. So if you have the
Right.
conversation with investors, you know, you're prepared, you've done your due diligence, you know what you're talking about. And then, you know, when you go to raise money, like Jim said, and you're talking financial projections, people are more likely to give someone money, not for their idea, but they're betting on the person, not the
Right.
idea. So it's the jockey, not the idea. So, you know, if I can summarize and say is like, proper foundations are key, and using great professionals to give you good advice is so key. And so you spend a little bit of money to begin with, but it's money that returns on its money. That's how I feel.
I want to take off on your comment about proper. One of the things that I find when I start working with people is they will show me a website that they have designed that has cost them $10,000, which doesn't have any real relevance to their business. They are thinking somehow or other they have to have a website. They read all about this fancy stuff, and sure enough, off they go and spend a lot of money. They would have been a heck of a lot better off taking that $10,000 and hiring an accountant and a lawyer to assist them in this process. So part of the message that I would encourage any of the folks in this audience to do is sit back, take a deep breath, and try to think about what has to happen before you spend any money. Most of the time, I find people waste money because they're not sure what to do, and they get caught up on the internet and what it can do for them, and it may not be relevant at all, or necessary for that matter.
You know, Jim, a question came in about cyber insurance.
Yes.
If the panelists think about cyber insurance would be good for a retail business. Anna Marie, I'll talk from the legal side, and then you could talk from the insurance side.
Sure.
So we live in a world of data privacy, you know, and there are so many breaches of data privacy. There are so many times where, you know, systems get hacked. If you're taking any sort of credit cards, you should always get a cybersecurity policy. And if you're doing contracts with corporations and you're processing any sort of PI or personal information or data, they will make you get a cybersecurity policy as part of the terms and conditions of that contract, because they don't want the PI or the personal information that they give you to get hacked by someone else. So, you know, retail business, or even a consulting business or a software licensing business, we're in the world where of breaches of data privacy. So from a lawyer, I highly, highly recommend it, especially for a retail business that's taking credit card and personal information on a daily basis. But Anna Maria, you could comment on that, and then policies and things of that nature.
Yeah, so I ask anybody I talk to, do you use a computer? And we know that everybody does. Anybody can be hacked. We know even the government can. Nobody can help. Or, you know, you can only be so proactive. So I will let you know that cyber insurance is not that expensive, especially for a retail store. Even if you're e-commerce, where it gets to be a little bit more expensive is when you have an IT business, or if you are having to go into your client's database and collecting information. But like I said, anybody ransomware, you open up your computer and someone says, hey, give me $10,000 or I won't give you back your information. That cyber policy is going to help. And there is a law that a business needs to protect their client's personal information, and we know no one can do that. So, Steve, I think it is, yes, I would definitely purchase cyber insurance. Even if you get 25,000 or 50,000 limit, do it. Get an option from your agent. You'll
Anna
be-
Maria, is there a base level that comes with your business owner policy, or is it always a separate policy?
No, what it does is you can usually add it on to the general liability policy that you have. It's depending on what kind of business you are, but it's very reasonable. I'm going to tell you, for 25,000 of coverage for retail, it's probably $40 a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
it's very reasonable.
Mhm. Do you recommend more than that for a business?
I'll tell you, if you're e-commerce and you're doing, selling things online, I would, but again, you don't want to be insurance poor. So get options. I mean, you can get 25,000, 50,000, 100,000. A lot of times contracts will ask you to have them, like Lema said. They'll give you a value that they want you to have.
Mhm.
And also too, if you are using a third party like PayPal or BrightStart or any of those, and they get hacked, I would find out, because your clients are using their financial information. Are they going to help you if you get sued, or are you going to have your own cyber liability policy?
I assume that they have deductibles also if you want them. Yeah.
Yes, they
Okay.
do.
Okay. Another question. What expectations should somebody have when they come to any one of you about what you can do for them? You cost money. It is going to be a process. How do you tell them the benefits to them and what their expectations might be that are realistic?
I mean, I can start. First of all, you shouldn't really be paying a fee for an insurance agent to give you information, especially for business insurance, because we get paid by the insurance company. I will let you know that if you are a startup or you are growing, your agent should be calling you a couple times a year. And I will let you know that at renewal, your agent should be reaching out to you, whether you want to speak to them or not. They should be reaching out to you and talking about things that may be changed. A lot of people that are a small business do not realize to call their agent. I'll let you know that we talked to this one restaurant owner during the year. I went to go see him. Usually on the left side of his building, it was a patio. Well, when I went in there and saw, the patio became $100,000 build out that he had. So if he had a fire, he would have been in trouble because he wouldn't have been covered properly. So that's why you need to talk to your agent at least once a year.
How about you other guys? What about the expectations? What should a client expect when they call you up for the first time?
When we start talking to a new potential client, we always ask, like, what are you doing now? What's working? What's not working? What are you frustrated by? If they're currently working with a bookkeeper, we try to understand how that's going. And again, obviously there must be a problem if they're now talking to us. So we kind of try to dig in and see what's going on. But I always will offer anybody a free 30-minute consultation just to look at what they're doing and give a second opinion. Because sometimes when a business is really small, I can give pointers that just help them keep things going in the right direction until they do really need our help. But also, at a minimum, you should be reconciling your bank and credit card statements every month. And you should be making sure that if you have a separate POS system from your QuickBooks, that they're in sync with each other and that they agree, the numbers agree, which I know sounds really nerdy, but it's money. At the end of the day, it's your money, and it has to be reconciled and buttoned up so that you know where everything is. Your financial statements, your P&L, your profit and loss statement, and your balance sheet, they tell a story of your business. And when we look at those, we can immediately say, you know, how's your cost of goods sold? Are your margins right? What's this on your balance sheet? Why is this number negative? You know, and we immediately see red flags and we can help them solve those problems. So they should definitely feel comfortable with the person that they're working with and feel that they can ask any question. No question's a dumb question. Only people who love accounting are accountants. So, you know, we're there to help and answer questions and just make sure that people understand what's going on.
How do you deal with people in terms of their use or non-use of QuickBooks and the need for it to get the process going?
If somebody is not using QuickBooks or they're using something else, we'll help them with that something else. Some people may be using NetSuite or Sage Intacct or Xero. That's fine. We don't make people use QuickBooks. We just want them to have something that is a general ledger where they can keep track of their numbers. If they need help getting things established, we can definitely help them get things set up and going. We can do a short consultation to get them set up and then teach them how to do it until they're big enough to afford, you know, an outsourced firm. Or we can get in there, and I have some people who just come to me every quarter and say, can you fix what I did? And I'll say yes, and I fix it, give them some pointers and send them on their way. So there's lots of different ways you can work with us. And we're always here to help.
Okay. Ima, do you have any thoughts on that?
Then working with a lawyer?
No, yeah, the expectations questions.
Yeah, so, you know, I think the biggest thing is if you're working with a lawyer or any sort of service professional, I think it's really key to get an engagement letter, which is essentially an agreement between you and that professional, whether it's an accountant, a marketing consultant, a lawyer, that details the scope of the services, how you're going to get billed, when you're going to get billed, all of those great things, so that you set the tone for the relationship and that your expectations are aligned, like what you expect as a client versus what they're going to give you. And I think that is really, really key. And you actually read it, right? I can't tell you how many times, you know, I've inherited clients, or I've had clients who sign engagement letters and don't read them. So they don't understand billing practices. Like accountants and lawyers, for example, bill by increments of time, right? Meaning it's not a per project basis unless it's decided in advance, right? You're going to get a flat fee for a project. So I think, you know, just make sure that whoever you're working with provides you a terms of service agreement or an engagement letter, and that you read it and understand that, so that you have clear expectations of what your costs are. You know, if you're starting a business, the number one line item usually is professional services, right? To get your business off the ground. So you want to be able to, you know, remain within budget. And then the other thing I would say is, not every service professional might be a good fit for you. So you might really like a lawyer or an accountant and they're just too expensive, right? Or, you know, they don't have industry experience or things like that. So what I would really tell you is, you know, really interview the person, make sure that there's a personality fit, right? That you feel good about the relationship, and make sure that you understand the costs and they provide you an engagement letter. And then, you know, ask good questions about their experience, you know, their rates, you know, questions about your engagement letter. I think that's really, really key.
Okay, let me comment on expectations for the kind of stuff that I do. One of the unusual aspects of the work that I do, and this is for SCORE, which you may or may not be familiar with, and small business development corporations, which are throughout Illinois. They're all over the place. There must be 25 in Illinois, and they're national. All of these services are free, which in this day and age is astonishing, but it's true. And most important, there are folks like me who do understand businesses. So one of the expectations ought to be when you come to someone like me, and the way you do that, by the way, is that you write into SCORE, say, I got a business problem, I need a mentor, or you do the same thing with SBDCs. What happens is somebody is assigned. If I'm assigned somebody, what takes place is there's an initial Zoom call introducing what we do and how it works, emphasizing there's no charge and it lasts for as long as you want. So there's no timeline associated with this. And then frequently what happens is that we will work together on the financial projections and what I call branding and marketing. How do you get your product into the marketplace? Part of this is what these other folks do. As this business evolves, everybody is going to need legal help, insurance help, or accounting help. And so what happens there is there can be recommendations to one of these people or other people to do something. But our service, as I said, is free. Their services, other than Anna Marie, who is paid, as she said, by the insurance company, their services cost money, but it's a critical element in this process. You don't want to wing this on your own and hope for the best that it's all going to work out. And it usually doesn't when you look at things in that way.
Can I just clarify, Jim? So, and Anna Maria, Lynette, I've never done panels with you, or maybe we've been on one panel. Anna Maria and I have done a lot of panels with SCORE. I can't say enough great things about the SCORE mentors. I think the service that you guys provide is amazing from the standpoint of you have subject matter experience running a business. A lot of you guys have grown businesses and sold them and are so gracious to volunteer your time. So I definitely think that's key. What I am going to clarify is there's no substitute for a lawyer or an accountant. Okay. Yeah. And what I mean by that is this. Is a lot of people get hearsay information or internet information from professionals that are not qualified to give them that information, and they rely on that information to make bad decisions. And I have seen that go haywire really fast. I'll give you a great example. I have a client who talked to someone who is not actually an accountant or a subject matter expert in the cannabis space. And they come to me and they're building a big business model on this, and they've invested a lot of money into it. And the first thing I said, I don't even think this business is legal. Have you looked at the code? And then they had relied on someone who had said, well, I'm a subject matter expert on the law in cannabis, right? And so just a rudimentary search, I'm not an expert in it, but I looked up the statute and I said, this business is not legal. And by the way, the hundreds and thousands of dollars that you just spent on consulting fees are going to get you nowhere because the law is not written for what you want to do. So I would be very, very careful. And I'm a big believer of let the baker bake the bread. So like I said to you at the beginning is I'm a lawyer with a dual degree and I have a finance degree. That doesn't make me a great accountant. I don't know the tax code. I'm not a tax attorney. So I would, Jim, I would just clarify by saying, or I know enough about insurance to be dangerous, but Anna Maria knows anytime I have a client that is I have these insurance questions and I want to talk to you about policies, I'm a smart person, but I know my limitations. Mm-hmm. And so I would say be very, very careful of who you're getting advice from. Because if you get bad advice from someone that's not qualified to give you that advice, it is actually a detriment to you. And we live in an environment where information is free, right? You can get on the internet and Google anything. That doesn't mean the source is credible, right? Or that doesn't mean that the source is qualified to give you information. So I would be very, very keen about what information you're getting, whether or not the source is credible, and you have good information to build your business on, because it could cost you a lot of money and a lot of tears if you didn't get good advice to begin with. So I would just say that.
Very true. I want to make a comment too about how we do referencing. I've got a lot of clients, and every once in a while I'll call up Anna Marie. And one example is I have a client who's a trucking company, and I said, Anna Marie, these people are getting killed on their insurance. What do you think? So you might just comment without naming names what you were able to do for these people.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. What I did is we reviewed their policies, and we represent many companies. So we were able to, explain to them what the coverage they had. It was workman's comp. They didn't know some of the ins and outs of it, and we also were able to save them money. But the biggest thing is we were very responsive. And when we were doing the process of quoting it, they would ask us questions and we would respond back. So I'm going to say with everybody here, if you don't get responses or you're begging people to call you back after a week, I would find someone else, because that's not acceptable at all.
Time is money in business, right? So if you're waiting for answers for 2 weeks, that's not a person that you want to use as a service professional.
Right.
Well, and the good news in this case was not only could you save them money, but you got them better coverage, which they didn't understand that they needed even before they started talking to you.
Right. Nobody ever took the time. And again, I know that Lema, Lynette, and Jim do explain what, like Lema was saying, explaining everything up front. You want to know what you're getting yourself into. And if you don't feel comfortable with that person, that's why I say, if you're going to get any of us, I would start early, because you're going to be juggling all these balls for your business to start it. And you really want to get, the people like us in your corner first, but you want to feel comfortable too.
That's a good comment. Maybe the rest of you, or you too, could comment on at what point in this cycle should somebody call up one of you? Can they wait? Should it be before they start? Should it be after they spend the $10,000 on their website? Where are you in the cycle, or where should you be in the cycle?
Well, I think back to that question about the Series LLC, that would be a really good conversation to have with an accountant before you even set up your entity, because deciding what type of entity has all different kinds of tax and legal ramifications. So really starting out with an attorney and a CPA is your best way to go to lay that strong foundation, to get the right agreements in place, to make the right formation documents, to know if you need an operating agreement, a partnership agreement, so I think that right away.
Mm-hmm.
And Lema, I'm sure you, Lema, think you ought to have an attorney from the get-go.
Yeah, I always say, if you're starting a business, the first thing you should do is write a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
And once you write a business plan and you flesh out your ideas and you think about how you're going to get money, and where it's coming from, because that essentially drives what entity you could essentially be. So for example, if you create 2 classes of stock, you can't be an S Corp, right? So beginning is, before talking to any of us, I think business plan is key, right? With financial projections, business idea, and your plan has to answer one question: how am I making money? And then once you're armed with a business plan, then I say, go to your professionals, go to your lawyer, go to your accountant, go to your insurance broker, go to your consultant. And then they have your blueprint, right? They know what you're thinking, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. And then they're better poised to advise you in a really constructive way. And it's a good use of your time and money. So I think without a business plan, without thinking about the ideas, I've seen a lot of clients flip-flop. Like, they want to do one thing, they come talk to me, and then they change their mind, and we're cooking again, and then they change their mind. So I think get it out, do your research, write the plan, meet with your professionals, get some input and advice, but don't go to your professionals without thinking through the issues. So that's what I would say.
Another related question is, how can any of us help these businesses get to the next level? The scalability question. And I will jump in with my thoughts on this, but I'd like to hear from the rest of you. One of the elements that I focus on when we're doing financial projections has to do with, where is this business going to be 5 years from now, whatever the number is. It doesn't matter. I mean, but the big thing is both the believability issue and the proof issue. If you're importing shoes from China and the shoes cost you $50 landed and you sell them for $100, you just do some simple multiplication. And sure enough, this person may want $1 million business. Well, that's okay. But what that means is that if you have to have $1 million business, you've got to sell 10,000 pairs of shoes in a year. Then, if you want to grow this business 25% a year or whatever, that's going to be, I don't know what the multiple is, but it's many multiples of 10,000. Say it's 50,000 that you have to be able to sell. The math part is easy. The challenge is getting to the next level. What do you have to do different? For example, in this simple-minded case, you got to be able to be sure that you're getting the absolute best price from your supplier. You know, instead of paying $50, if you're going to buy 10,000, can you get it for $39? Who knows? Far more relevant, however, is, what is your marketing strategy? What do you have to do to sell 10,000 of these things, let alone 50,000? What are the pieces? And this then relates to everything that we are talking about today. You need, at every step of the way, a very different kind of insurance policy if you're now covering 100,000 units a year versus 5,000. Your legal structure may need to change for your growth business, and certainly your accounting has to keep up with it. So there are many elements that any of us can help you with in growing the business. And maybe you guys want to comment how you see this from your points of view.
I'll go. I would say is, you know, your professional services advisors and your team, you know, whether it's your board of advisors, are not the end all be all, right? It's like, you got to ask yourself, how bad do I want it? Right? Because running a business is a very, very difficult endeavor. I mean, everyone on the call could tell you. So there is, I think, no substitute for, number one, is having the, you know, personal initiative to do it. You can have the best lawyer, the best accountant, the best insurance broker, the best consultant, the best score mentor in the world. And you're never going to get to the next level unless you take ownership and accountability for you getting there. And what I mean by that is, you know, kind of what Jim said is, like, you constantly have to be proactive. You have to revisit questions and concerns. And as your business grows, you're going to have different needs. You can't just sit in the car, put it on autopilot and drive. This is like the road is winding and it's going backwards and forwards, and you got to pay really great attention and you got to focus. So I think from that standpoint, it's really great to have a great team, but the great team isn't going to help you scale. It's you that's going to give guidance to that team to help you scale. You're in the driver's seat. They're passengers, right? So that's number one. Number two is, you know, I'm going to answer the question that's in the chat box and piggyback off of something that Jim just said is, you know, business plan for Omar and Laura Cardenas that just asked it. You know, that you need help with your business plan. Listen, I agree with Jim. There are great resources in the community right now that are free to help you with business plan writing. Women's Business Development Center is great. SCORE has a great program. SCORE has great mentors. So all of this is like mining for information and being proactive. This helps you get started and it helps you scale. It's the same sort of like mindset, right? But so, you know, my thing to everyone on the call is, running a business is not a hobby, okay? It's a serious thing. If you're going to take out money from your family, take out a business loan, mortgage your house, you better be ready to like be your own boss, and be your own boss is like having a lot of initiative and really, really being engaged and proactive in the endeavor.
Mhm.
I think too, taking again off from this question on the business plan, we do not do the work for you. We guide you in what has to happen. But if you're looking for somebody to do your heavy lifting, it's unlikely you'll find it. Now, that's not to say you couldn't pay somebody to do it for you, but as Lema was just saying, this has to be your thing. It can't be me writing your business plan for you because I'm not you. So, yeah, we can give you outlines, show you how to do it, what has to happen, and hold your hand as you are doing it, but we don't, as a rule, do it for you.
And you know, just to quickly jump in is get on Amazon and Google writing a business plan. There's probably 100 books by different professionals that go into, you know, how to write a proper business plan. And I believe Ernst & Young did one, you know, maybe like 10 years ago. That's really good. It's not outdated. It gets you to think about the same issues. So I would look that up and use that as a resource. And as Jim said, you know, once you have some sort of plan together and you're really proactive about it, I would go and mine information and see what resources are available that are free of charge, where someone can give me some feedback on that.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have any other questions that the audience would like an answer to?
There are a few came in. Is it okay for startup costs to come from my personal account?
The answer is sure, if you can afford it. The challenge with money is there's always a cost associated with it. Obviously, if it's from your personal account, the cost is that it depletes your personal account. If you can only get it from somebody else, you've got to be aware of what you may have to give up to get that. Could be a piece of the business, putting your house up as collateral, who knows? But the big question is not where the money comes from, but how much money do you need? And this goes back to the projections and the planning issue.
Mhm.
Well, Jim, I'm gonna just say one thing about liability, or are you gonna jump in on
Go ahead,
that?
Lema. Go ahead.
No, you go first, because I've talked, but do
Well,
that.
I was just gonna say that if you are gonna use your personal money to start up your own business, that's totally fine, but you need to keep track, right? So that becomes a contribution to your business, and that becomes equity in your business. So what I stress a lot to business owners is keep your personal money separated from your business money. So open a second bank account for your business and then put that money in there and then use it for your business.
Okay.
Don't go back and forth, because if you mix and mingle, it's a mess. So I was just
Well,
going to say, make sure you keep it separated.
well, not only is it an accounting mess, but it exposes you to liability. So
Right.
if you're setting up a business, the only way that the law gives you a shield from liability, meaning you and the business are not equal, they're separate and distinct, is if you don't do what's called commingling assets. So meaning your business bank account is your personal piggy bank. That means you're paying your personal rent out of the business, paying your, you know, personal car expenses, going shopping with a corporate credit card. So you want to keep that distinct and separate. So if someone sues you in the future, they're not trying to pierce the corporate veil and go after you personally. So to Lynette's point is it's key, once you've set up a business, to make that initial capital contribution into the business bank account, and then to keep those things separate, to keep a separate corporate credit card, to keep a separate bank account. Because remember, you set up the entity from a liability standpoint, and you don't want someone to come in and pierce the corporate veil and go after your personal assets. So it's very, very important to separate them for liability purposes.
And also, I wanted to chime in also is never do business under your personal name. Always figure out what entity is best for you, because if you don't, and you don't have enough insurance, then they can go after your personal assets. You have a pension plan, do you have a house, do you have money in the bank? So when people
Yeah.
call me and say to me, oh, I'm doing this under my personal name, I said, I always mention, I would really think twice about that before you.
Yeah, because you're a sole proprietor.
Right,
If you're doing business under your personal name, so you have no shield from liability.
Right.
So there's no corporate entity. So then any sort of liability attaches to the person.
Right.
Anna, can you let me do a screen share? If you can click on your machine. I want to share something with this group. Can you guys see this? 12
yes,
slides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The question came up about business plans, and I would like to show you what I do when I talk to clients. This is used when you are in front of people that have money. It doesn't have investors or banks or whatever it is. Its purpose is to cover what it is that you need to be sure is in a plan or a strategy. And I just want to quickly go over these things. You need a vision statement. What is this business all about and what your goals are? What plans do you have to solve a problem? What's the value proposition that you are providing? How do you measure and show people what you've done? Do you have a secret sauce behind all of this stuff? Who has the money? Who are your customers? How are you going to reach them? Who's your competition? Key players in your team, financial projections we've talked about, and a summary. What this is used for is two separate things. One is, if you are actually in front of investors, you want to be able to cover all of this, because if you put yourself in their shoes, this is what they want to know. So you got to have your ducks in a row for something like this. Once you have done this, and let's assume that, yeah, I'm in front of investors, they like this, then the heavy lifting starts, because that's when you need the detailed business plan, the detailed financials. You got to have your legal structure, your accounting structure, and everything else. But the important point is, unless you have all of this stuff, you won't be able to have a business that people can understand. So we can send this to you. I'll send it to you, Anna, so you can distribute it. But it might help some of our folks able to see what this is.
that's great.
Okay?
I think there's more questions.
Yes, I see them here. What do you think about signing up for a service like Legal Shield versus hiring a business attorney?
So I think that you get what you pay for.
Right.
So what I mean by that
wait a minute.
is,
Accepting what
it's just like TurboTax, and Lynette could probably tell you the same thing, or like buying your insurance online and not talking to a professional. I think when you use services that are automated like that, you don't really get the benefit of someone's experience and expertise. And sometimes like the solution is not based on a rule or law, right? The solution is more about talking through issues, getting the person's experience and expertise to lend you a novel or creative solution. Where like Legal Shield or LegalZoom, it's like, input your information and now I'm gonna spit out boilerplate documents, right? And to me is like, if you really care about your business and you're going to invest a lot of time and money in it, you want a custom tailored solution. You don't want to take shortcuts on things that are really critical and important to you. And I think if you have really great service providers, whether they're legal or otherwise, the value of the service outweighs any of the costs tenfold. And I truly believe that as someone who's a professional and someone who has used professionals. I'm like, great professionals really are like driving luxury cars. They just make it a lot, they make the experience a lot better. And I have my insurance, for example, with Anna Maria. I can't tell you how many times her people reach out to me and, when it comes up for a renewal or they want to like help me get the best solution. And it's a conversation versus like me going on the internet and putting my information and then getting a policy, right?
Mhm.
So I would say, you get what you pay for. If you want more of a, generic solution, you pay less money, but you get a generic solution. If you want a custom tailored service driven solution, I think it's key to go with a lawyer. The other thing is, when you go with a live person, there's a value add inherent to that. Like, so for example, let's say I have a client and I'm doing work for them, and then I can connect the dots and introduce them to other people, right?
Mhm.
That's a value add that I'm not billing for, right? But that's a way for me to provide an opportunity for my client besides just doing their legal documents. LegalZoom or Legal Shield won't do that, right? You pay X number of dollars and you can do that. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, I don't have money to hire a lawyer, so that's my best option. And it could be, right? But it shouldn't be a long-term option. It should be a temporary option if you're attempting to use it and not a long-term one.
Well, I have a related question for both Lynette and Lima, which is, if I'm a startup business, realistically, how much money should I set aside to provide a basic, at least introduction to what each of you do, and maybe even to get me past the first step? Do I need $5,000? Do I need 10? How do I size this as part of my financial thinking?
I'd say it depends, but Lynette, do you want to talk about the startup deduction
Mhm,
that the government has for the first $5,000?
mhm. Okay,
Oh, that's not my expertise, so I'm not sure,
Oh,
but I was also going to say it depends.
right.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is that you ought to consider setting aside something for this versus nothing. Because if you can spend $10,000 on a website, you might be a heck of a lot better off spending that for legal and financial and accounting advice,
Mhm.
and make sure you're on
Depends,
the right
yeah.
track.
I mean, $5,000 would go a long way to getting you set up legally, wouldn't you say, Lema? I
yeah.
mean,
Unless
that
you're
would go a
raising
long
money and
way.
you need a private placement
Yeah,
memorandum.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. If it's a simple startup,
yeah.
5,000's plenty.
Okay, so that's worth understanding as part of the general amount of money that you have. Okay, there's a new question. Can either of you guys chime in, talk about scope? I guess.
S-corp.
Okay,
You have an LLC and an S corp filed at the same time, or do you have an LLC that elected an S corp election?
mhm,
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. So the answer is different. If you're a limited liability company and you elected to be taxed like an S corp, but you can't file two entities together. So that's not possible. So some people are LLCs and they are taxed like a partnership or a sole member, and then they decide to change their tax election and then to a corporation. I mean, that's feasible, right, Lynette? But I don't really
Right,
understand the
right.
question because you can't
Right.
file two entities at the same time.
okay. I don't have any other questions here, so I'll end up with a closing question for each one of you, which is, can each of you give us a single, maybe two, tips that is a takeaway for the audience? What do you think?
I mean, I'll start. The first thing I tell every business owner is never sign a contract or a lease without sharing the insurance requirements that are always in them with your insurance agent. So for instance, I had an architect come to me a few weeks ago with an unsigned contract. We read it together and they wanted him to have $1 million of cyber liability. Now, why would he need that? So I told him, why don't you go back to them and ask them either waive it Or let's do 50,000, it'll cost you maybe $100 a year. Well, they waived it. If he didn't go back, he would have paid thousands of dollars for nothing. Another thing I like to say is buying insurance is not like buying a car. Find out what coverages you have and then the price. Because I can't tell you how many times I work at 1871. I have people come to me and I review their current program. They have an office policy. They don't even have anything to do with cyber or, tech E&O or anything like that. But they thought, oh, $500 was great. It's going to cover me. So be very, very particular. And one other thing I wanted to say is we will all put our information in right now of how to get a hold of us.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the one thing I would say is, definitely when you're starting out, do your homework. Take the time to do your business plan, to figure out, talk to people, professionals, to get a strong foundation laid, because really you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You're always need to be prepared for worst case scenario, which sounds negative, but smart. You need a strong foundation so that you're protected from anything that can come your way in the future. And that involves talking to a CPA about what makes sense in terms of what type of entity you should be. I would also suggest talking to, if you have a financial planner for your personal assets, talk to your financial planner about the business that you want to start and see if they can give you advice too. Definitely talking to professionals before you spend a dollar is definitely my opinion and the way to go.
Okay.
And I'd say, I'm a big believer of drafting business plans before talking to professionals to think about all of the issues. And two is, if you're going into business with anyone, make sure you have a agreement in place. I think Lynette, you hinted at it, during your one of your comments, but that is the number one dispute in startups that I always see. Is like the two people get together, they want to start a business, they don't put it in writing, and then they're fighting because they want to break up and who owns what and who owns what debt. So definitely say those two things. Plan and paper it up.
Okay, I will share with you what my final tip is. This is the funding secret. Okay? Funding is not based on great products or services. Every startup has this. They are all convinced they've got the world beater thing. What it is based on, and this is funding whether you're getting a grant or an investor or a bank, it's based on products that will increase revenues, achieve a profit, have positive cash flow, are scalable, and have a competitive advantage. These are all the things that you need to keep in the back of your mind as you're developing your product. Otherwise, what you have is what's called a lifestyle business. And a lifestyle business is perfectly acceptable, but it's like if you're opening a hair salon and you're going to work in it and you're going to rent a chair from somebody else and you're going to do it 4 hours a day. That's a lifestyle business. You don't expect to get rich, but you make a little money and it's fine. But if you have what is called a funded startup in some way or other, this is what you need. Reason is very simple. The people who are going to give you the money want to be assured that they can get paid back. Really simple. Banks must have the ability to see that, yes, I am going to get my interest and principal paid every month. How do they do that? When you do the financial projections, as an example, there's something that is called a debt service ratio, something that I'm sure you've never heard of. What it is very simple. If you have a operating income of $10,000 a month and you have interest and principal of $12,000, you will not get a loan because there's not enough money. If you have operating income of $10,000 a month and you have interest and principal of $8,000, That's a debt service ratio of about 1.2, which is what a bank wants. You have to have that, otherwise you won't get it. If you then think, oh, my next alternative is the wonderful investor, the answer may be yes, but remember what I said earlier. They want a big piece of the action, and you may lose control to get the money. All of this relates to these items. If you can demonstrate that you can achieve profits, increase revenues, have positive cash flow, the chances of your getting money are much, much higher. So that covers, I think, most of what we wanted to do today. Anna Marie, can I turn it back to you?
Sure. First of all, I wanted to make sure that everybody can see our information because I changed it to everyone.
I believe so. I also copy and paste it for everyone.
Oh, okay, okay. I just wanted to thank everybody for being on the panel. Thank you, Jim, for facilitating. Thank you, Geraldine, for the opportunity. Thank you, everybody in the audience. If anybody has any other questions, please reach out. I know that all of us are available via email at any time for you. I hope this was productive of your time.
Well,
And
thank you very much. Thank you all to all of our panelists, our facilitator. We truly appreciate you taking your time out to help educate the entrepreneurs. Again, this webinar was recorded and will be at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I put that in the chat a few times, so hopefully you guys see that. And wishing everyone a great weekend, and thank you. Have a great day.
thank you.
Great. Have a great day, everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, Geraldine. Okay, thanks, everybody.